So many wires. Okay. Oh, I forgot even the one who turned it on. All right, now Moshakya Muni Buddha. Good morning, everyone. All right, today we're going to have an exciting class. It's our last class for this semester. So I am planning to do quick overview, but knowing me and my talkativeness, it's not going to be quick. But it will be a summary of everything that we've been covering this year so far. So if you've been following us through with the classes, either online or in person, you know that we've been covering the topic of developing our concentration through a practice called Upakara Samadhi, or access concentration. So access concentration, as it sounds like, is the access point to give you to solid concentration, or concentration that's strong enough, stable enough to actually help develop your practice, right? Because we do all these techniques and all these methods to get to this point of access concentration, right? Because in access concentration, we have very little distractions, very little thoughts, very little things that take over our object of meditation. They may still be there, right? But they're very small, they're a little wispy, and they're in the background, and they're not strong enough to take over your practice. So for the most part, we've been using the breath as our object of meditation, right? Last year, during the classes, we went through a dozen or so different methods and techniques that we can use in our practice, right? So we went over several methods of breathing meditation, walking meditation, chanting meditation, mantra meditation, visualization. So I give you all these different methods for you, right? So, and the point of that was to find something that worked best for you, right? Because what works best for me may not work best for you, right? And so I've given you all these methods to find which one works for you. So then, now that this kind of time comes around and we're working specifically on access meditation, you already have a method that works for you best. So if breathing or following the breath is not your preferred method, then you have whatever other method you use. But the point is whatever method you're using is your object of meditation. So I'm just going to continue using the breath as the example of object of meditation. So early in the year, or last year I think, we covered in detail the 5 hindrances, right? These are the hindrances or the obstacles that arise during our meditation. These are the categories of the obstacles that anything that arises or happens or comes up during meditation will fit into one of these 5 categories of the 5 hindrances. And sometimes they're just random, right? But they still plug into one of those hindrances. Sometimes they're large enough to take over the entire session. So the point that we were trying to have is to be able to be aware and recognize which of the hindrance the obstacle or the distraction belongs to, because each of the hindrances also have their antidote, right? They have its own remedy of the type of meditation you would use to counteract that hindrance, so you can suppress it and eventually eradicate it altogether. Because once we get to the higher levels of meditation after access concentration, right? After access concentration is where you get into the real meditation, right? Called the jhanas or the dhyanas. And these are the higher levels of meditation. In order to get to those levels, those 5 hindrances have to be suppressed enough so they do not arise and take over, right? They're still there, but they're not strong enough to completely take over your session. So last year we went over in detail each of those, and we'll cover some of that today as well, just so that you're aware of what they are and how to counteract them. But I'm going to start from the beginning and kind of work my way down so I don't lose my lose my what's the word I'm looking for? Action plan. Anyway, so since I'm doing a quick overview, I'm going to do an overview of all the bigger topics that we've covered so far this year. So I'm doing this because for the next 3 Saturdays, we have meditation, because I know typically our class is every second and fourth Saturday, but all the Saturdays in June will have meditation still, but just meditation. So there won't be any Dharma talk. We'll have a session before and after the sit to have any Q&A if you have any questions, but we'll just be able to sit and meditate the whole entire time. And I wanted to do that to prepare us for our retreat that's coming up on the 25th of June. So it's a precepts retreat. The flyer's on the window. So if you're interested in that retreat, please do register. I think we have about 6 or 7 spots left. So that's coming up soon. So all the Saturdays coming up is to prepare us for that retreat. It is a little different than our meditation retreat that we have during the winter, only in the sense that the 8 precepts retreat is more chanting and less meditation, whereas the meditation retreat this winter is more meditation and less chanting. But in our tradition, in our temple, chanting is still a form of meditation, right? It's like when we do mantra meditation or chanting meditation, it's the same thing, right? So it's still meditation, but it's verbal meditation. But regardless, it's still a very beneficial retreat, so I do encourage everyone that is interested to join us for that. It is a free retreat, and it's lots of fun. It is 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., so that kind of scares some people, but it's not as bad. It's not that bad. You can ask some of my members here, they've been to most of our retreats, so they'll tell you it sounds scary to be here that early, but it's not that crazy. Anyway, so the first topic one of the first topics that we discussed this year was a body scan. Has anyone heard of a body scan when you do meditation? Yes? Okay. So for those of you who have not heard of a body scan is literally what it sounds like. You're scanning your body when you sit to do meditation to essentially relax the body, right? Because sometimes maybe we're not used to sitting down, maybe we're sitting in an uncomfortable or new position, right? And sometimes our mind wanders a little bit, or our body is a little finicky, I don't know, whatever. But the body scan is really just scanning traditionally from the top of your head and just kind of going down each section. So you're focusing maybe on the top of your head, you're just feeling sensations. If there's airflow, then you feel the air moving, you feel what sensation is up there. Is it warm? Is it cold? Whatever it may be, right? You're really, literally just scanning the area. And then you just work your way down. So you can go to your forehead, to your eyes, your ears, your nose, your lips, chest, neck, blah, 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 right? You work your way down. And one of the points of that is to, one, recognize what's going on in the body, right? And to see if there's a specific place where we are uncomfortable, maybe it's a little tense, right? Because you're trying to, a lot of times when I walk around during meditation to observe people and to correct their posture, they're so tense because they're trying to sit up straight for the entire time, right? That it's just, I can tell you're uncomfortable, right? So the body scan is to view and observe that tension and to relax it, right? And to be able to sit comfortably in the meditation, so that you're not tensed up. Because when you're tensing up, your entire attention is on that tension because you're trying to sit up so straight and solid. But what are you doing? Your meditation now is here versus in the mind, right? So the body scan helps alleviate some of those tension areas in the body and to allow you to recognize that there's tension there and just release it. And you kind of work your way down. And it also helps recognize, or helps you to recognize if there's if you're sitting uncomfortably, right? Because sometimes if you're sitting cross-legged or in lotus position or half lotus position, sometimes we have to adjust that posture. But we feel like when we're in meditation that it's like wrong to move. Right? It's not wrong to move. If you're completely uncomfortable, then move. Otherwise, you're just going to ruin your session, right? You're sitting down uncomfortable and in pain the entire time, and you just wasted 30 minutes of your life, right? And so the body scan also helps make those minor adjustments early on so that it doesn't hang on for the entire session and ruin your session, right? And so just allow yourself to find those tension areas, find where you're holding on to, and just make those small adjustments if needed. And we started putting out these red cushions for that reason. Because when we're sitting, this is my own personal preference, but when I sit for meditation, I sit in half lotus, which nobody's doing, but it's having one foot on top of your thigh, right? Because full lotus is both feet up, right? And that's, it depends on how flexible you are. You may or may not be able to do that, but regardless, 1 foot on your knee or thigh or whatever it is half lotus. And that's most comfortable for me, because when you sit regular cross-legged, most of your attention is going to be on your ankles, on your feet, right? And so that eventually will make your feet or legs fall asleep faster, because there's a lot of pressure on your feet. And then you're also, depending on how high you're sitting, you may have more pressure on your ankles than you do on your backside. And the reason we have more cushions, and the reason why you would want to sit at least half lotus, is because you're high enough and you're stable enough where you create this very strong triangular formation in your body. So now you have equal pressure in each of the 3 sections, right? Versus if you're sitting high and regular cross-legged, then you have the potential of putting too much pressure on your ankles, right? So you're sitting kind of forward a little bit, and then your feet will fall asleep much quicker. And so when you're able to sit high enough and with the correct position, then you have a very stable foundation. So you're able to sit longer and more comfortably. But that's another thing you can experiment with, is how you want to sit. Maybe you don't need to sit cross-legged or in lotus or half lotus, depending on the cushions you use or not use, right? It's all about you. It's all about you. And then we talked about working with distractions and labeling, right? Labeling becomes a very important practice in meditation, especially when you're first starting to meditate or if you're semi-new to it. Labeling is a very important and a very helpful practice to do. Essentially, what we're trying to do in meditation, the point of meditation, right, is to develop concentration, and it's to learn how our mind works. And in order to learn how our mind works, we have to be able to observe it without interacting with it. So essentially, we're watching our thinking separately and not being a part of the thinking. It's a little difficult to do, right? Because when you're thinking, you're either engaging with the thought, or you come to the awareness that you're thinking, you let it go, right? Which is fine. But sometimes you really want to take away from that thinking, to watch it, to see where the thinking goes, right? Because we're trying to work and learn how our mind works, we want to see what caused that thought to arise, how it arose, what it's arising, where it's taking us, what it's doing to us, what feelings is it invoking in us, right? And we have to know these things because every thought or every feeling that arises, whether it's good or bad, has a root cause. And so when we label things, we are adding this label and adding it into this bucket, right? So if this bucket, whatever you label, maybe you're labeling pain, maybe you're labeling anger, maybe you're labeling sadness, whatever it is, you're adding it to this bucket. Eventually, you'll have a whole bunch of different buckets with different labels on it, right? And now you're able to create this trend chart. I always use the word trend chart because I used to be an analyst, or I'm an analyst, so everything is words and numbers for me. But you create this trend chart and you're able to see exactly what arises most often during meditation, right? Maybe it's a certain person that arises too often, right? Maybe they cause you so much distress or anger or whatever it may be. But now you know what's happening or what's causing it, what's arising, and now you have something tangible to work with, right? Now you know, oh, this certain person always comes up during meditation. They're always causing me anxiety or distress or anger, whatever it may be. But now you know what or who it's causing those feelings. So now you have something to work with. Right? If it's a person, then maybe you have to distance yourself from them. Maybe you have to unfriend them. Maybe you have to change your relationship with them. But at least you know what or who is causing those emotions, right? And so once you are able to address it and take care of it, then it stops becoming a recurrence during meditation, right? And so the more you do that with the different labels and different categories that arise, the more you're able to take those things out of your life or whatever, and they become less and less, and they become less hindrances as you meditate, right? So as you do that and you work with the mind and work toward the objects that arise during meditation and eradicate them, then slowly and slowly you have less things arising during meditation. And eventually you have nothing arising, right? You have a complete still mind that's in total equanimity. And that's the goal here, right? And then from there, right, once you start labeling things and you just start to play around with things, right, and I want to also emphasize that when you're labeling, don't think too much of it. Don't think too much of what to label it, right? So you're thinking if something arises, you're like, oh, what's a good label for this? Who cares? Whatever arises first is the correct label. So if the door opens, sound, door, person, whatever it may be, right? Don't sit there and think, who's opening the door? Why are they late? Why are they disturbing my meditation? Right? You don't want to entertain the thoughts. Simply just give it what it is. Sound or door. Anything is correct, right? Just one word. It doesn't have to be a sentence. So it's the same thing with anything else. You hear the AC, turn on or turn off. Sound, AC, right? You hear someone moving, movement, sound, walking, person, it doesn't matter, right? Give it a quick label because your mind is trying to take you away from the present moment, right? Our mind, I always say this, our mind is obsessed with past and future, right? It's extremely scared of the present because the present is the only thing that it cannot control, right? Our mind, we think we're the masters of our mind, but we're not. Our mind is the masters of us. Because if you were truly the master of your mind, then you would be able to automatically control what you think, how you think, and what arises when you think. Can you do that? Can you stop your thinking and cut it off? You cannot. So you can't say you're the master of your mind. So our mind is the master of us, and so it becomes our master because it constantly bombards us with past memories, past anxieties, past regrets, right? And then it also bombards us with future anxieties. It bombards us with what we have to do next, what we have to do after we leave, what we have to do tomorrow, what we have to do with our lives, et cetera, right? And so it constantly moves us and shimmies us from one side to another because it cannot know what the present is, right? And the present is the present. And we can't predict the present because the present is the present. And so when we try to bring our mind to the present, it's like, no, I don't like this. Let's think about that argument we had with our significant other 2 weeks ago. Or let's think about that job we hated 5 years ago, right? It always wants to take you over here and takes you over here because it can't control the present. And so when we work with our mind and we work with our object of meditation and we're working with what arises, that's why labeling is important, because as things arise, as soon as we recognize something like door open, we just instead of, if we were sitting in meditation, if the door were to open, instead of wondering who it is, where are they going to sit, who are they, etc., we can just say door, and our mind's like, okay, fine, you caught me, and it'll let it go. Right? As soon as you bring awareness to the distraction or the thought or the feeling, your mind's like, okay, fine, you caught me, right? Because otherwise, if you don't become aware of the sound or person or whatever, what happens? You start entertaining the thought, right? You start to think who it is, what are they doing, what are they wearing, what do they look like, what do they sound like, right? But as soon as you say door or sound, your mind's like, okay, you caught me, and it'll let it go. So the more you do that, the more your mind does it automatically, right? It's all about diligence in this case, right? I always emphasize we have to be mindful as much as possible. So that when you come to temple or anything, any time in life, when you're walking to your car, or you're walking back to your house, or you're doing chores, or you're working, do things with mindfulness, right? Mindfulness is just the ability to be aware of what you're doing in the moment. That's it. It sounds so simple. And why don't we do it 24/7? Because we can't. Again, our mind is taking it in the past or trying to teleport you to the future. But when we become mindful, right, if we're able to remind ourselves to become mindful and be present with what we're doing, then it becomes easier to not be dragged to the past or dragged to the future, right? And so that way you become more aware of things. Whether you've been here, whether this is your first time at the temple, if you've been here 1,000 million times, if you walk to your car in mindfulness and you're aware of where you're walking, how you're walking, I guarantee you will notice something you've never noticed before. You've been here, Leon, I've been here for 10 years. I kid you not. If I walk in mindfulness, I will notice something I've never seen before. Matt was here a couple weeks ago. We went to one of the light posts out there. There was a switch to this light post. I've been here over 10 years. I've never seen this switch until he pointed it out. It was his first time in that area. Because he knows what he's looking for. He knows how to be aware of what he's looking at. I don't, so I wasn't paying attention. He paid attention. And so when we do that in life, then we're able to enjoy what we're doing, right? That's part of the joy of mindfulness, is enjoying even the mundane things we do. Cooking, cleaning. As much as I hate laundry, doing laundry can be joyous if you do it with mindfulness. Okay, I'll stop there. So labeling makes sense, yes? Okay. I expect to telepathically hear everyone's labels today. I'm sorry, I'm not telepathic yet, so. What else did we cover this year? I almost forgot. And the 5 hindrances. So I wanted to emphasize the 5 hindrances because it is the biggest obstacle in our practice. Whether you're meditating or you're in an argument with someone, 5 hindrances, one or more of the 5 hindrances will arise, right? These are the foundations of suffering in Buddhism. So when we are sitting in meditation, at least, what we want to do today when we sit is to recognize and label what of the 5 hindrances are arising. Because one thing, at least in the hindrances part, when you're labeling, you can see what of the 5 hindrances arise the most, right? The 5 hindrances, again, is desire, ill will, or aversion, worriness and restlessness, sloth and torpor, and doubt, right? So for the most part, aversion is the biggest one that typically arises. Aversion here doesn't necessarily mean something bad. It's just, aversion is denying or pushing away something that is unpleasant and trying to bring something that's pleasant, right? And so we're replacing, let's say, we're sitting and our legs are falling asleep, or we're uncomfortable, right? So you're averse to that feeling because you're wanting something that's unpleasant to become pleasant. And so what we typically do is we think about that, and so we're switching aversion for now desire, because now we desire to be comfortable, right? So in anything like in Buddhism, it's not wrong to want something pleasant. It's not wrong to want something that's not pleasant, or to push away the unpleasantness and wanting pleasure, right? It's not, there's nothing wrong necessarily with that. What becomes wrong is attachment. Attachment is the big key here, especially in Buddhism. Attachment is what causes us to suffer, according to the Four Noble Truths, right? The second noble truth is the reason for our suffering, which is desire, or more specifically, attachment to our desires. And so that's not really a big deal in meditation, but how desire arises in meditation is the fact that we are wanting something good to happen. Whether you want a comfortable position or you sit in meditation wanting something to happen, right? And that's the big thing, that when people meditate, they're expecting this aha moment to happen, expecting fireworks to spit out of their head when something good happens, right? But sometimes nothing will happen in your meditation. Sometimes nothing will happen. Sometimes something big will happen. I was reading a treatise, a very famous treatise in Buddhism about the perfection of wisdom, and I had fireworks happen because something clicked. And so I had a minor tear run down my face because I was like, oh my God, this makes so much sense. I'm so happy. Because an aha moment happened. And so sometimes people expect that, right? So you sit down in meditation, you expect to have those fireworks happen. There's occasions where people would come and ask a question about meditation, like, I want to immediately enter jhana, right? Again, jhana there's 4 levels, and these are the advanced levels of meditation. These levels, or these jhanas, are very difficult to attain. They're not impossible, but they're very difficult to attain, especially for lay practitioners. And so to have the expectation that you want to attain that and not really practice diligently, you're never going to attain it. But that doesn't mean it's impossible. It is possible if you put in the work, right? And you can only attain it when we achieve access concentration, right? Access concentration is the preliminary mindset that we need in order to enter these higher levels of meditation. But people want magic to happen when they meditate for some reason. They want all their anxieties to be relieved. They want all their stresses to be melted away. They want their depression to just magically disappear. It doesn't work like that. These things are byproducts of meditation, right? These are the pseudo benefits of meditation. Yes, you will have less anxiety. Yes, you will have less distress in life. Yes, you will be able to have a calmer mind and less chaotic mind. You will, but these are byproducts of a real meditation practice. And so a lot of people come specifically just for those reasons. And I sometimes scare people away because I'm like, I'm not going to teach you that. If you're here to release your anxieties and your stresses, you might as well just go to a hospital, because they do the same thing there at the psych ward. But anyway, I brought up my trusty whiteboard today because I wanted to. We're gonna go over these 5 hindrances in a little bit more detail. Somebody's gonna have to move the camera for me if you don't mind. I guess I'll move the camera. Okay. So, distractions, I'm just gonna call them objects. Then we have the hindrances. And we have the remedy. Okay, so what type of feelings or distractions arise when you're meditating? Typically, pain is one, right? So I have chicken handwriting. I come from a family of lawyers and doctors, so it just inherently came over. Anyway, what else arises when you meditate besides pain? We're all Buddhas apparently now. Nothing arises. Worries, okay. That's very vague, but yes. It's one of the 5 hindrances too, worry. What else? Doubt is also a hindrance. Dabut.
Distractions, like sounds.
Okay. What else?
With numbness and pain.
I'm sorry?
Numbness.
I would put that in pain. Numbness as pain.
I'm not ill will.
Well,
Would that be a part of worry?
that will be hindrances. So the hindrances I'm just going to put up here. So hindrances are desire. I'm sorry, say again? No, thank you. Yes, that's one of them. So desire, aversion, or ill will, worriness, sloth, torpor, and doubt are the 5 hindrances. I'm going to put future anxiety. Sleepiness, right? That's a hindrance sometimes, or that's an obstacle that arises. Or maybe too much energy, which, okay. So pain would be an aversion, right? Worriness literally goes into worriness, doubt to doubt. Sound would also be an aversion, because even though sound may not... So the hindrances, just because something arises during meditation doesn't necessarily mean it is a distraction or bothers you, right? But it's still something that arose. Because once you're in access concentration, right, you're in a state of absorption where sounds and anything outside of your mind your mind doesn't even recognize that, right? You're so absorbed in your meditation object, you're so in the zone that if the door were to open or a war would go on outside, you wouldn't even realize it, right? And so sound becomes an aversion because it's something that we would hope would not be there, right? Because if your concentration is weak and you hear a sound, then that becomes a distraction. The sound takes you away from your meditation object. Whether it's just for a few seconds or for a whole minute, it's still something there, right? And anxiety is also part of worriness, right? Because we're worried about the future. What are we going to do tomorrow? What are we going to do after class? Sleepiness is in sloth and torpor, and too much energy is in worriness too, because it's worriness and restlessness. Restlessness. I think I spelled that right. So sleepiness and too much energy, I think, are also one of the big ones, at least sleepiness, right? Depending on when you meditate, which is part of why we have to experiment with meditation sometimes. You have to experiment with the time of day, at least, right? Because we can say, oh yeah, the midday, we're fully awake, it's midday, it's the afternoon, we have so much energy. But actually, midday is the worst time to meditate. Especially for me, because I'm already like sleepy. So you really have to figure out when is going to be the best time for you to meditate. For the most part, early morning is the best time. And that's me personally. I know you meditate in the afternoon, during lunch, you meditate after work, if I remember correctly. So everyone knows when to meditate. So you have to figure that out. So that way, sleepiness doesn't become a distraction, because it's a huge distraction. A huge distraction. Too much energy, which probably the rarest of everything, but it's also a thing, right? Sleepiness is having not enough energy, right? Versus having too much energy, because if we're too energetic, then our mind is chaotic, right? Our mind also has too much energy. It has that monkey mind thing going on. And maybe our body becomes too jittery and we move too much and we're slouching or we're fidgeting with our fingers, because whatever, but you get the point, right? So again, each of the hindrances also have their remedy. So for desire, when I didn't even put anything for desire, but desire would probably be the opposite of any of these, right? So if you're in pain, what do you desire when you're in pain? To not have pain, right? So anyway, so desire, when we so the remedy to desire is to meditate on impermanence. Because pain doesn't last forever, obviously, right? So if you're sitting in pain, if you were to stand up, oh, well, look, that pain magically disappeared. Your foot's no longer in pain, right? Or maybe your back hurts, or whatever it may be, right? And so it could be for any desire. Any desire in life is impermanent, right? We have a desire to be successful. How long are you going to be successful for? Maybe until you retire, maybe when you die. That just means that success is not going to last forever, right? Same thing with money, same thing with our cars, and our houses, and our phones. A lot of these things will last for a very long time, but they will not last forever, right? And so when we meditate on impermanence, then we're able to help our mind effectively work toward things that become lost, right? Maybe we lose a loved one, maybe we lost our phone, maybe we lost our keys, right? If we practice impermanence correctly, then when those things happen, we are not so significantly burdened, right? We don't hurt so much when those things happen, because we understand that, yes, as much as we love our phones, if we drop it and break the screen, then it's broken. Maybe it's functional still, maybe it's not functional. But if we understand that, regardless of how much we love it and want it, it will also not last forever, right? And so understanding that helps us to become like, okay, cool, my phone broke. No big deal, I'll get another phone, right? And for ill will, the remedy to that is loving kindness, or metta. Terrible handwriting, I'm so sorry. But metta is loving kindness. So there's a meditation in Buddhism called loving kindness meditation, or metta meditation. So it's essentially creating what's the word I'm looking for? An altruistic mind of kindness toward ourselves and toward other people, right? And so in the actual meditation, in the actual Loving Kindness Sutra, the discourse on loving kindness meditation, the Buddha advises us to meditate on these phrases, right? May I be free of suffering. May I be healthy. May I be free of anxiety. May my mind be free, right? And so you're developing loving kindness for yourself. And then you do that for someone that you love, right? Maybe your significant other, your parents, or your children. May they be happy. May they be free from suffering. May they be healthy. May their mind be at ease, right? And then you move on to an acquaintance, maybe a coworker or your neighbor. May they be happy. May they be free from suffering. May they be healthy. May their mind be free. And you move on to someone that you don't really know, like the person, the cashier at H-E-B. May they be happy. May they be free from suffering. May their mind be at ease. And then we finally do that for people that we dislike, right? Because they too deserve to be happy and healthy and their mind be at ease, right? So loving kindness is the remedy to any ill will that arises. Worriness or restlessness, that and sloth and torpor kind of have the same remedy, because for the most part, restlessness, the majority of the objects that arise during restlessness in our meditation is sleepiness. That's the biggest one, right? And then it's the anxieties. But either way, both of these remedies is mindfulness of breathing. Okay, that was terrible. I'm blaming the shakiness of this board, just FYI. Mindfulness of breathing, anapanasati. So anytime your mind has too much energy or too little energy, bringing your mindfulness back to the breath is going to be the remedy for that. Because when you have too much energy, your mind is racing, right? Your mind is in 5,000 different directions. You have that monkey mind that we call it, right? And so it's going in 1,000 different directions. That means it's focusing on too many things at once. And so bringing it back to the object of meditation of the breath is going to help calm that mind. And the same thing with sleepiness, right? And there's different techniques to get out of the sleepiness phase, but mindfulness of breathing is one of them. Another thing that the Buddha suggested is you can open up your eyes. If you close your eyes during meditation, just open up your eyes, right? Sometimes just the bright light will help awaken the mind. Or maybe just doing standing, or just stand, right? In the Satipatthana Sutra, the Foundations of Mindfulness discourse, the Buddha said, practice standing meditation. Literally just stand meditation. Also walking meditation could be a remedy as well. And in very extreme circumstances, and I do this when I have very long sessions of meditation, is to deliberately create a distraction, right? Because your mind's like, oh, I'm bored thinking and meditating on the breath, right? Because that's how it starts falling asleep. And so deliberately distracting yourself for like 10 seconds maximum will help kind of restart your brain activity a little bit, right? And kind of get it a little bit more energized. So that's a very extreme method. I only recommend it if you're capable of getting out of the distraction, right? Because sometimes when we start a distraction, we go with it, we start entertaining it, we play along with it for the whole duration and get stuck. So don't get stuck. And for anything for doubt, our remedy is investigation or contemplation. I'm also gonna blame my bad handwriting because English is my second language. Just kidding. No, I'm not kidding, but still. So investigation or contemplation. So doubt here, for the most part, at least in the Buddhist perspective, is doubt in the practice, or maybe doubt in the teachings. And because sometimes, a lot of times when we hear, or at least when people come to me and say, you know, I'm trying to start a meditation practice, but I just can't sit still. My mind's racing too much. I can't clear my mind, you know, et cetera, et cetera. They have all these excuses as to why they cannot meditate, right? And so they have doubt that they're able to do it, that they have doubt that they're not doing it correctly. But I always say, because one thing, the most common thing that comes up when people try to describe their meditation practice is, I can't clear my mind. And my response is always, who told you to clear your mind? Who told you to clear your mind? I'm never going to tell you to clear your mind because it's almost impossible to completely clear your mind, right? So since it's practically impossible to do that, especially if a meditation practice is fairly new, then of course it's going to cause you doubt because it can't happen right away, at least. So the point of meditation, at least in the early stages, and when I say early stages, I mean like your first 3 to 5 years, because it will take that long to even start calming your mind by like 5%, 10%. But the point of meditation is not to stop thinking, but to know that you're thinking, right? Because again, we're trying to see and figure out and learn how our mind works. And in order to do that, we have to know that we're thinking. We have to know and figure out what we're thinking about and how we're thinking, why it's arising, where it's going, where it's taking us. And so when we have doubt, am I doing this right? Ask yourself, what do you think right is? Why do I feel like I should not stop thinking? Why do I feel like I'm doing this wrong? All right? Question what arises. One of the meditations that I teach is called why meditation. Why meditation is important because, again, it helps you figure out, helps you recognize where your mind goes and where certain thoughts or feelings arise from, right? And so if you're sitting in meditation and the thought of jealousy arises, for instance, right? Oh, I wish I had this job, or I wish I had this much money, or I wish I had this big of a house, right? Ask yourself, why? Why do you think that? Right? And so you dig down a little bit deeper and deeper into your brain, into your mind, and figure out why you feel jealousy. Where is it coming from? So when you ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? Oh, because I'm not as successful as my sister, maybe, right? Why is your sister more successful than you? Because she has a higher education, she got better internships, she has better jobs. Why did she have a higher education, better internship, or better jobs? Because she's harder worker than harder worker? No, this is not right. Is that right? You're the writer, you tell me. Harder worker, is that a correct sentence? Is that grammatically correct? Harder worker? But you know what I'm saying, right? And so then you ask yourself, then why is she a harder worker? That sounds so wrong. Why is she a harder worker, right? Because she was more diligent in her studies. She was more focused. Why was she more focused, right? And so you dig deeper and deeper and ask yourself why and why until you get to the very core of why you feel jealousy, right? So once you get to that very core, and again, like I mentioned earlier, now you have something tangible to work with. Now you know exactly what's causing the string of jealousy to arise. And so investigation becomes very important, especially in Buddhist practice. Because eventually, right, in meditation at least, there's two main types of meditation, samatha and vipassana. Concentration meditation and contemplation meditation, right? But we have to know first how to concentrate before we contemplate on things. Because if we try to contemplate on things without a strong enough concentration, then our mind will be all over the place, right? It's vacationing in different places. So we really have to be able to at least know well enough or practice well enough concentration, samatha, before we start to do any contemplation studies or meditations. In Buddhism, contemplation is very important to our practice because that's how realizations arise. So when you are, like when I was meditating, contemplating on the Perfection of Wisdom treatise, that aha moment arose because I was contemplating, right? And so the same thing happens in any other of the topics in Buddhism. And so when we sit and meditate, if you're not developing your concentration and you're doing contemplation, then you take up a topic like the Four Noble Truths, and then you're contemplating what the Four Noble Truths mean, right? What does the sutras say? What do the teachers say? What do the books say? What do I feel like of the Four Noble Truths, right? You start to dissect the teachings. You start to analyze what the Four Noble Truths mean and what they're supposed to have you realize, right? And so once you realize and recognize the truth in the Noble Truths, then you have that aha moment, right? Okay, any questions about my messy handwriting? No questions? We're all Buddhas now? It's one thing to say, yeah, I'm going to sit in meditation and observe all these hindrances that arise. But to actually do it becomes a whole other thing. Because some of the things that arise during meditation are very subtle, and we don't feel like it deserves to be part of the Five Hindrances, right? Maybe we just hear a sound, it's simply a sound. Or maybe a thought arose, it's simply a thought, right? We don't think it's a big deal. It's not really obstructing our practice, but it's still part of the Five Hindrances. So we have to be able to, whatever arises during meditation, at least for today's practice when we sit, is to, whatever arises, try to categorize whatever it is. And that way we can see, and that way you will see that the things that arise, whether they're huge or very small and subtle, they all belong somewhere, right? So like I said, a sound, even though it's not completely disturbing your practice, still belongs under aversion. Because whether you would admit it or not, if that sound were not there, you would have had a better practice, right? Because you're meditating, then you hear a sound, so there's a little bump, right? And so if that bump wasn't there, you would have had a more steady practice, right? So we want this. We don't want this. And as small as that little bump is, we would still rather not have it there, right? And so it's important to be able to recognize and be aware even of those little subtle things that arise, whether they're a big deal or not. I think that's all we covered this year so far, right? Did I miss anything? I know I went over a lot of information today, but because we're not doing any more discussions for our June classes that I wanted to get it all out here now.
You had mentioned, I don't know what session it was, but something about the concept of like feeling like you're at the door. You described it as like you're at the door and like with being able to go through the door. Can you just talk more about that?
Are you referring to the access concentration?
I think maybe it was that.
That is access concentration. So I use the door because access concentration is the preliminary mindset we need to be in, right? Past the door, okay, let's say access concentration is outside. Inside are the higher levels of meditation, the 4 jhanas or the 4 dhyanas. Well, there's really 9, but the 4 main ones, right? But in order to get inside, we need access to the building, right? So access concentration allows you to open that door to go inside to the higher levels of meditation. So that's why if you see outside is huge, right? Inside is small because you have to go through all the obstacles outside in order to come in here. And it's in here that's where it's peaceful, it's quiet, it's serene, right? And that's how the 4 jhanas are. They're peaceful, they're serene, you're in tranquility. So you have to work through all the obstacles outside. You have to go through jungles, you have to go through highways, you have to go through war zones, right? Just to get to the door. The door is the access, so you need to come in and be serene. So that's why, we always emphasize mindfulness. The word mindfulness is in every single Buddhist book you will pick up. Every single book you read will have the word mindfulness at least once, I guarantee you. Why? Because it's important. Because if you're not mindful of your surroundings, you're not mindful of the outside area, how are you going to find the door to enter true practice? Right? And so, like I said, try to be mindful of anything and everything you do. Even the stupid mundane things, brushing your teeth, taking a shower, changing your clothes, just be mindful. Because you have to train your mind to do those things, to be mindful. Because eventually, once you do it long enough and enough, it just becomes habit. Your mind will automatically recognize that you're doing something and you become mindful automatically. I have, at least for monks and nuns, we have 52 gathas, little mantras, little sayings, right? And these are little sayings for the little things we do. So when I wake up in the morning, I have a little gatha. When I put on my robe, I have a gatha. When I brush my teeth, I have a gatha. When I open the door, turn on the light switch, everything that I do has a gatha, right? Because it forces you to become mindful of what you're doing. And so early on in my practice, what I would do is put little sticky notes on everything, right? So on my door, just to open the door, I have to be mindful of opening the door. So I have a little sticky note there with the little gatha to open the door. I have a little sticky note on top of the hanger where my robes are. So that way when I grab my robe and put it on, I have a little gatha to remind me to be mindful of that. And so I think that's a beneficial practice for anybody to do. So when you can either make up your own gathas and little mantras or saying that you want, or you can find the actual 52 in Buddhism that we have, right? And then write those down and stick them on everything you do. Even if you just write the word mindfulness and sticky note and put it on everything, at least it'll force you to become mindful of whatever you're about to do. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Does that answer your question? Any other questions? Concerns? Emotional outbursts? So, I just want to remind everyone that the next, 3 Saturdays, we have meditation class, but just straight up meditation, right? So there's no discussion. We'll have a period before and after to do questions. And I was thinking of, because stretching is very important before and after you do meditation. So my Nona always says, you should do Tai Chi. I was like, you know what, maybe I'll do Tai Chi this time. Because I do Tai Chi. So depending on the method of Tai Chi you do, there's different steps, right? There's 21, 24, 36, 48, and 58 steps. Anyway, there's different Tai Chi options. And so the one I usually are the 24-step Tai Chi, but I'm not going to teach 24 steps. So I dissected the ones that flow good together because it all flows together. But anyway, we're only going to do seven steps. So for the next 3 classes, we'll do 15 minutes of Tai Chi just to help us to get into the zone. Are you happy now?
Yeah.
I know she's been begging me to do that for like 2 years, so I'm finally going to do it. So we'll do a little bit of Tai Chi, and hopefully we can all stretch together. Anyway, so that's the next 3 classes, and then the 25th we have our retreats. I think I said we had, 6 or 7 spots left, or 7 or 8 spots, something like that. But the posters on the window there's a little code you can scan and register for. And you do have to register if you plan to attend. There's something else I was going to mention, I totally forgot.
So next Saturday, same time?
Yes, so the next 3 Saturdays, 10 o'clock. Be ready, because we'll be sitting. I was planning to do 45 minutes of sitting, 50 minutes of walking. But if we do Tai Chi, then it'll probably be more like 30 minutes of sitting and 15 minutes of walking. Because in our retreat, we only have 2 official sitting sessions of meditation and walking. The rest are chanting and our other schedules stuff. I lost my train of thought. Yes, okay, I'm going to stop there. Yes, ma'am.
When is this class resume?
I'm sorry?
When does this class resume? In the fall?
Yes, we'll come back in September. I think in August, June and July will be, because I'll be out of town most of July this year, so that's why we don't have anything. But in August, I think I'll do the same thing and just have meditation every Saturday. That way when we come back in September, so my plan this year was to have the first half of the year concentrate on the samatha part, right, concentration, and the second half of the year we'll do the vipassana, insight meditation or contemplation. So that way for our winter retreat in December, so we'll have classes in September, October, and November for 3 months, and then December, I think it's usually either the first or second Saturday. Well, this year will be different because this year we're celebrating our 15th year anniversary for the temple, plus our abbot's 85th birthday, so we have a big celebration in December. So depending on when that happens, I'll have to schedule the retreat around that. But yeah, officially we'll come back in September, but in August we'll resume every Saturday for meditation. To prepare again for the winter retreat, since it's meditation heavy. It's like 6 sessions of 45 minutes. So it really tests your practice. Easy peasy. Easy peasy. Easy peasy. Okay. Any questions? Last minute questions? All right. So then we'll sit for 20 minutes. So feel free to stretch out a little bit. We'll sit for 20 minutes and do our walking meditation after. Sit down. Welcome back. How was everyone's meditation? What hindrances arose most for you? Sorry, I'm looking at you because I thought you were trying to say something. No hindrances? We're all Buddhas now?
Well, yeah, I don't know. I had this today, literally alone, but like something I see, like, I don't like this.
Aversion. Unpleasantness is aversion. Pleasantness is desire. Well, not necessarily, but it's desiring to be free from unpleasantness is what it is. I always have unpleasantness meditating on these cushions. My morning meditation is my longest, 90 minutes. But in the morning, when we do morning chanting meditations in the old shrine, so I'm sitting on the floor, so it's easy to meditate for that long. But these chairs are too high for me, so I always have to do at least like 3 or 4 body scans sometimes, just to remind myself to untense my legs as I feel like I'm trying to sit myself up. Anyway, it's my problem, not yours.
I would say one thing for me is the desire for the distractions to cease. And so by desiring for them to cease, I'm feeding them and making them even more and more pronounced. And then I'm totally lost in wanting things to be somehow better than they really are right at the moment.
Yeah.
Like, pretty good at catching myself and going back from that, but I do notice that.
Noticing it is the first step. Doing something about it is the next step, which is letting go. So as long as you have that letting go piece there, then you're doing exactly what you need to do. Otherwise, if you don't let it go and it's just sitting there wandering about, then you're still stuck on step 1. Then you're lost into limbo land of, I wish I was in the ocean or something. But we have to also, one thing that's also important is to let go of expectations. Because that's, to me, I think expectations is more dangerous than desire. Because even though desire, according to Buddhist practice, is the main reason of our suffering, the attachment to the desire, which is still true, but I think expectations is more dangerous, especially in our day and age. Because we have literally millions of things that the Buddha's time did not have that cause us to struggle more than the people in his time. Because the people in his time, he would give a Dharma talk, and all of a sudden the entire assembly would become enlightened. That's how easy it was to become enlightened. Not to say it was easy, but it was easier because it had less obstacles than we do. Now we have to worry about our phones, we have to worry about travel, we have to worry about our family, we have to worry about our job, we have to worry about how much money we have, how much money we don't have, things we want to buy, things we want to go, things we want to visit, places we want to do, things we want to do. We have all these other bazillion things we have to worry about. So we have more struggle to become enlightened, which is why I said attaining any of the higher jhana levels is very difficult because of those things. And almost every resource or book or teacher that would teach about the jhanas, 99% of them all said that in order to have the ability to attain any of the jhanas, the best environment is a retreat. Not our one-day retreat, like a 3-month retreat or longer. Because I think I mentioned in our last class or past Sunday service when I gave the Dharma talk on right concentration of the Eightfold Path. About 10 years ago, 11 years ago, I did a 3-month retreat in Thailand after I graduated college. And it was only during the last week of that retreat where the first jhana was attained for me. So it took 3 months of constant meditation. And last week, I'm like, really? The last week this happens? Now I have to go from a very serene, perfect environment of practice to the chaotic life that I had before. And so since then, until I became a monk, I wasn't able to stably attain the same state of mind. But I hope that through your own practice, diligent practice, that you are at least able to taste the fruits of meditation, right? Whether it's access concentration or actually attaining one of the higher levels. But the fruits will only flourish through diligent practice. And it's important to have a consistent practice. Consistency is key. 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever amount of time you're able to give yourself, do it. I would rather you have 5 good minutes of meditation versus 30 minutes of wasted meditation. Because you can sit down for 30 minutes to meditate, but your mind is over there and your body is over here. Versus if you had 5 minutes of good meditation where you're in unity with body and mind, that 5 minutes is going to be much more helpful to you than 30 minutes of wasted meditation. You have to give yourself the ability, the time to meditate. There's a tremendous joy to meditation practice, especially when you reach a good enough especially when you reach like a stable concentration stage. You come out of it feeling very joyous. And that joy is, I even forgot to talk about the access concentration today, even though those are the topic. But one of the signs of being in access concentration is the joy we feel during meditation. Knowing that you are sitting in meditation with strong enough concentration. Knowing that you're sitting there and you're able to concentrate on your object of meditation fully, or at least most of the time, you're able to catch those distractions and wandering thoughts fast, right? And not allowing them to take over. And just feeling the joy in meditation. Sometimes people see flashing lights or visions and whatever, right? And those are also good signs, unimportant signs. Don't think anything of it, right? These are just road signs on our path, right? Another good sign is our breathing. Our breathing becomes very shallow, very light. It almost feels like we're not breathing at all, right? And so that's also a sign of strong concentration. So take note of those subtle signs that arise and know that you are practicing correctly. Yes, sir.
I was thinking about that, about how when the joy arises, just like when anything else arises, that's not our goal. And so eventually we say joy and we let that joy
Right.
go, because then it comes back to the desire. desire and grasping of. And then you have the expectation, I'm going to sit down because I want to feel that feeling. And the feeling happens when conditions are right. There's nothing that we do or don't do.
Right. Because not all of your sits are going to be successful. Right? Not every session that you're going to have is going to be a good session. Sometimes you'll have bad sessions. Sometimes you have good sessions. Sometimes you'll have really good sessions. And sometimes you just wasted 30 minutes. So that's why expectation is important to drop. Do not have an expectation that every time you sit it's going to be the exact same thing. Because it's not. At least not until later on, when you've perfected some of your practices.
Is it accurate to say it's a skill like learning any other skill?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You have to practice every day, learn a guitar or flute.
Exactly. Training our mind in meditation is like we're literally training our mind, right? And so it's the same way you go and train at a gym. It takes months, years to become a bodybuilder. You can't just go once, lift a few weights, look at me, I'm a bodybuilder. Same thing, you can't just go into meditation once or twice, all of a sudden you're a Zen master. No, it takes time, it takes effort, it takes practice. So you have to work at it, right? Just like anything else. That's why we go to school, to learn things, right? And things get harder and harder as we progress in school. So it's the same thing in our practice. We have to learn all the different routines and methods and skills and work our way up. You can't just start a PhD program at 10 years old unless you're a freaking genius. Right? You have to work your way up. Okay. It's been a long session today, but I hope it's been fruitful and allows everyone to have something to work with, especially when we come for the next few Saturdays of just meditation. Hopefully you have all the necessary methods and techniques that we've covered so far this year and in the past to allow you to have a good practice. And I hope everyone will join us for our retreat. It's coming up very quickly. I just finished finalizing the schedule the other day. So it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. It's not as popular or as big as our meditation retreat. I think everyone gets scared of what happens during the 8 precepts retreat because there's so much chanting, and for some reason that scares people off. But again, chanting is also a form of meditation. And it's not very long. It's like, I don't know. It's been a while actually since we've had a 8 precepts retreat now that I think about it. Right? COVID did get in the way. So I think 2019 was the last time we had an 8 precepts retreat. Were you there? You were there. The very first one. It was at the old temple. I don't remember. Something. Was it? I don't know. It was a very long time ago. You were there too, weren't you? You were there. Your daughter came too. That's right. So it was a precepts retreat. So it's been a while. But the concept of a precepts retreat anywhere, any temple or monastery, is to I don't want to say the word showcase, but to live in the day life of a monk or nun. So it tries to mirror the schedule that monks and nuns have. The timings are a little bit off because it starts later, right? The schedule starts from 6 to 6 versus we start at 5. So everything's a little bit more condensed. But regardless, everything that we do during the day is everything I would do on my normal day, right? Just squished together a little bit. But it's supposed to provoke how important some of these practices are. And it helps you see some of the joys and the fruits that arise when these practices are done. And so that way you can take those practices with you back home and do at home when you have the time. Okay.
We'll spend all day without looking at our phones. The phones will stay in the car turned off all day.
That's right, no phone.
That right there is your first withdrawal from that world. It's a big one.
That's right, no electronics free. It's like bold. I bolded that on any of our flyers. Is no electronics. Speaking of electronics, someone was popular today during our meditation. I've fortunately been able to learn to tune out temple sounds. So the doors, the AC, the animals, those I'm never aware of anymore. But anything new that arises during my meditation, I like pings. So whoever's phone is ringing, I'm like, is that a phone? But then when I recognize that sound, then all the other sounds that I was missing out on came too. So I heard the AC, I heard the peacocks, so I like tuned myself back. That's what happens. When you're fully absorbed, you truly do not, you're in your own mind. You don't hear any external stuff. And so that's one of the things I've been proud of myself. I'm able to tune out all those things. Okay. Stop there. I will see everyone for the next few Saturdays, and I expect everyone that's here to be here on the 25th for a retreat as well. But thank you for joining us. Namo Shakya Mani Baba.